Hi, this is Bert Taylor at Vistabule Teardrop Trailers. We've had a lot of interest from people wanting to put racks on their Vistabule trailers. So we've looked around and we found a good option for existing trailers and new trailers that people are ordering now. I'm going to show you how to install a Yakima rack, and I'm going to show you what the Yakima rack is all about. Before we get into the details of installing your roof rack, I wanted to show you what it looks like with the Yakima already on one of our trailers. As you can see, it consists of the rear and the front rack, and they are installed firmly into this channel which runs along the perimeter of the trailer. The system consists of a landing pad that is secured to the channel, a riser that is secured to the landing pad, an adapter that is secured to the riser, and finally a round bar. If you should decide that your upcoming trip is not going to need a roof rack, then it's easy to take them off and put this handy little cap on. Open the clip on the riser, lift it up, and snap in the cap onto the landing pad. If you're worried about theft of your Yakima rack, you can purchase a lock set. It consists of 4 little cams. One goes into each one of the risers. Pry out the temporary cap. Insert the key into the lock. Make sure that the round part on the end here is at the top. Insert it into the lock, turn it, and pull it out, and you're set. So we found that the Yakima rack seems to work best on our trailers. Here's what you need. The foundation of the Yakima system is the landing pad. It consists of 2 boxes with 2 landing pads in each box. The Skyline towers attach to the landing pads. There's 4 of them in a box. You'll also need 2 round bar SL adapters that mount on the Skyline towers. And finally, you'll need a pair of 66-inch Yakima round bars. Now let's talk about hardware. There are a few adaptations that we've had to make to the hardware package that comes with the Yakima rack. One is the square nut, and the other is the bolt that holds the landing pad down. So the hardware package comes with these little square nuts. For the most part, they'll fit into this channel, but when you have to slide 8 of them in, you may run into some problems. So what we do to make it easier to install is we grind off this edge just a little bit and this edge using vice grips on a bench top grinder. Once you do that, then all 8 of them will slide in quite nicely, all the way to the point where you will be mounting the rack. So it's a pretty easy thing to do if you have a grinder. And your dad or your grandpa probably has one of these on his bench in the basement or in the garage. So it's not a big deal, but you also need a vice grips. And the vice grips just firmly attach to the square nut, and then we're ready to grind this edge and the back edge off. Be sure to have a little bit of water for cooling purposes, because these get really hot and I don't want you to burn yourself. So we're going to start grinding. So now all you have to do is that same process seven more times. If you find that this process is a little more daunting than you would like, give us a call, and for a small handling fee, we'll send you a packet of nuts and the hardware that you'll need. The other adaptation has to do with adding a washer to the landing pad bolt. The hardware package consists of the bolt, the washer, and the plastic washer. We're adding a lock washer to the system. The assembly sequence is the lock washer first, then the metal washer, and then the plastic washer. So here you can see from the factory that the bolt sticks down quite a bit further than if you add the lock washer. If you don't do this, then this bolt will bottom out on the channel and the landing pad won't tighten to the top of the channel and your rack will be loose. Let's talk about tools. Yakima supplies a couple tools with their hardware package. One is the simple Allen wrench. The other is an Allen wrench that looks like a screwdriver. Then you'll need either a Phillips screwdriver or a power driver with a number 2 Phillips bit. Also, you'll need a hammer, a scissors, and a punch. So this is a punch with a wide diameter countersinking point. Before you start this project, the first thing you want to do is chalk your tires. You do not want to be working on a runaway trailer. Before we install the towers, we have to remove the vinyl insert. Here's how we do it. We need to remove this channel cover before we can remove the vinyl. We're going to partially remove the vinyl. Just pull up, work your way up the trailer and continue until you get to the top of the windshield. When we originally installed this channel, we used panhead screws. The head of the screw will impede the sliding of the square nut down the channel. So we need to replace those panhead screws with flathead screws. You're going to be removing the panhead screws and replacing them with the number 8 flathead Phillips 1-inch stainless steel screws. We're going to remove all of the panhead screws from the top of the windshield to the top of the hatch, save one, the last one. Now remember, leave the last screw. So these screw holes will need to be punched in order for the square nuts to pass over the flathead screws. So I'll start with this one right here. So set the punch in the hole and give it a good rap, maybe 2. So the reason we left this screw in place was so that we can put a little dab of caulk in each of these holes while the channel is still firmly in place. Now that I've caulked the holes, I'm going to put the flathead screws in. So when we take the screw out of the rail cover, sometimes this seam can lift a little bit, and so we want to just kind of tap that down a little bit so that our square nut can slide in easily. So now we can take out this last screw. And you can see that if we had not taken this screw out, that this wouldn't have popped up above the other rail. So now we can slide our nut in this slot here. So now we can slide our altered square nuts into the channel. You want to send 2 all the way up to the front and leave 2 near the back, somewhere in that area. Now that we've done that, we can screw this one back in with a flat head, and we can also countersink this one and put a flat head in, and we'll remember to put some caulk into those 2 holes. So your front landing pad is going to have to be somewhere in here, just between the windshield and the top seam here, in order for the rack to be level. With the square nuts in place, we can install the last 2 screws. Now remember, this one has to be countersunk and a little dab of caulk. So now that we have the square nuts in the channel and we have our lock washers in our landing pad that limits the depth of the bolts, we can attach the landing pads to the channels. So you just line them up approximately like this, and with your Yakima supplied tool, get one started, just barely, and then get the other one started. Just barely. Now we can still move this. So what's critical here now is that we place this just in the right place. If we go too far forward, your rack is going to impede the opening of your fan. So if you can be exactly at 9.5 inches from the open hatch to the center of the landing pad, you'll be in good shape. So now that I've got my tape measure here, I can position this trough here exactly centered on the trough to 9.5 inches. Hold it in place, and then tighten these snugly so that it doesn't shift. And then tighten it completely until it stops. There, now you've got that set. So now that your landing pad is set, we have to determine where the front landing pad is going to set as well. If you have a rack system that needs it to be closer together, then it'll have to be a little this way. If you want it to be level to the floor, then it has to be where I'm going to show you in the next step. So for a level installation, you've gone from 9.5 from the hatch to the center of this landing pad. Now we're going to go from the back edge of this landing pad and the front edge of this landing pad, and we're going to go to 36.5 inches. So now we can snug this down. And tighten it down. If the tape measure isn't handy, you can align the front edge of the back nodule here with this seam, and that will get you pretty level. So now we're going to use the scissors to trim the vinyl. So using your eye, try to cut as close to the bottom of the landing pad as you can. So now we're going to reinsert the vinyl. Start by placing one edge of the vinyl into the track, and then if you have a popsicle stick or a plastic tool like this, just come in here and just kind of move on up. And then pop the last little bit just by bending the vinyl into place. As you recall, we took the vinyl from the back and we stripped it to the front. We're reinstalling it from the front to the back. So we've cut this. We don't want to lose track that this is actually the front of the remaining tape. And the reason that's important is because there's a hole right back here where the cover was. That's the first thing we removed when we started this process. If you cut off the wrong end of this tape, your hole is going to be in the wrong place. So once you've cut this vinyl off of this piece, let's say you have a nice straight edge here. You're going to install this and bend the front edge and snap it in and push the vinyl up against your landing pad. Now you'll start to install it to the next landing pad. So as you put it in, you may need, the vinyl might scoot away from the landing pad. You can get it back to where it belongs by kind of pulling it back, like combing it back like this until it hits here again. Now you can continue on installing this down to about there. And you could take your scissors, again, lining it up with the bottom of the landing pad, cutting a straight like that. I need to cut a little more off. And I can continue the install. There. Sometimes you might have to pound in a little bit to even it out, and you're good to go to the next piece. So, starting with your hole, with the long end of the vinyl to the right, line the hole up with the seam. Something like that. Now you can get this over. Cut it. Maybe cut just a little bit more. And then finish the install from there. And then work your way down to the back end of the trailer. Now the last step is to reinstall your clip. Now that you've installed the landing pads on the left side of the trailer, you're ready to do the same thing on the right side. So after you've done that, then we can show you how to install the risers. Okay, now that you have your landing pads installed on your trailer, it's time to get familiar with the riser and the round bar adapters. So we're going to be installing the adapters into the riser, and then they'll be ready to put the bar in place. So the first thing you'll want to do is to take this little base plate, put it into the riser and snap it in place. Then you'll take the round bar receiver, and you can see a little screw in here. Put it right directly on top of that. So now this is the point where we use the Yakima tool to adjust with one screw and tighten the other. So we want to back out this screw right here, and to know you've gone far enough, look for this little spot right here. You want to reveal the bolt that's in there. As you see, as I back this out, I can now see the hex receiver hole right there. So now we're going to tighten this screw, which will bring the adapter down into place. So that can be tight until you hear a click. Now this is in place. It still seems loose, but when you tighten this little guy, when it's on the trailer, this will come down and tighten onto the bar. Okay, so now I'm assembling the second riser, and hear that click? That means we can go over to the trailer and install these. All right, we've got the front bar securely in place. I'm going to show you how we do the back bar. Okay, so we've got the back riser installed. Now we're going to install this riser. If you notice, when I do this, two little prongs protrude out of the either side of this, the base plate here. That's what makes the riser secured to the landing pad. So I'm going to put that on. Now let's insert the bar into the riser. There are some barbs in here that will kind of catch the bar. You'll have to tip it back and push it through. You might have a little difficulty at first, but once you get it past the point, just push it all the way over to the other side. And now we'll go over to that side and we'll push it through that one. Okay, now the next step is to pull the bar through the second riser. If you go to about 5 inches, you'll be just about centered. Let's tighten our last riser. Now the last thing we're going to do is to tap in our little end cap that goes in the end of the bar. Okay, so we've got your rack on. You are ready to put an awning on, or a bike rack, a kayak, or maybe you could figure out how to put a canoe on, I'm not sure. But if you have any trouble installing your rack, you can give us a call, or just watch this video a few times and I'm sure you'll get it. I hope this adds many options for you to enjoy your trailer even more. So thanks for watching.